and welcome to the NHL show on the Sauter on Sports Podcast Network. I am Mark Sauter. This is my good friend from the Hockey Writers, Philadelphia writer, hockey writer, everything writer, Justin. How you doing on a Friday, brother? The people, I don't even need to say this for the Spotify listeners, because for Spotify, everything's normal. There's nothing weird. Everything's fine. If you've been trying to watch on Twitter and or YouTube or YouTube, I don't know why you'd watch on both, then you are well aware that we had some epic technical difficulties. And by we, I mean me. So they are fixed. I think we're good to go. We're rolling, talking Metro Division in the NHL. Justin, how we doing on a Friday, man? I'll try not to waste any more of your time.
Never happened. That last stream didn't happen. I'm good. Ready to get through everything this time, every team.
Yes, sir.
It's the Metro is probably one of the weaker divisions, maybe, but I still think it's interesting. I still think it's kind of wide open, honestly. So we'll see what happens. Preseason is basically halfway done already. It felt like it just started, but maybe like a week left, and then we get into the regular season, and then before we know it, it'll be playoffs. So can't wait to start.
Yeah, I mean, to your first point, I think it's like Carolina, and then anything can happen. Washington could be just as good as last year, or they could take a significant step back. Logan Thompson was terrific last year. Are we going to get that same Logan Thompson? The Devils, can Jack Hughes, and I'm not trying to be rude to the guy, can Jack Hughes play a full season? Because if he doesn't play, that team just falls off the map. That's just kind of what happens. The Rangers, I mean, it can't be as bad as last year, but did they do enough to really get back to what they were? And as far as the preseason goes, two things, Justin. Number one, at this time next year, the preseason will be over. So just keep that close to your heart. Where if this was next season, it would be done. Not quite yet. Dude, like I cover the Dallas Stars for the Hockey Writers, like you cover the Flyers for the Hockey Writers. We write for the same site. And we're watching these preseason games and we're covering the games. And I did a piece this morning about the game last night, and we're doing recaps for these games. And listen, man, the Hockey Writers has some terrific writers who love watching these players that 90% of the hockey population has never heard of. And they love all the nitty gritty of the prospects. And I'll just be honest, I could care less. Like, I just want regular season hockey. I don't mean to shame myself as a hockey writer, but I'm just like, there's a couple guys on the outside who might be like first call-ups if someone gets hurt, like Jamie Benn did yesterday. But other than that, like, I'm ready for the season, man. I'm good. 3 preseason games. The Stars have 4 more preseason games, and it's like, oh my goodness. Colorado on Saturday might be fun, but whew.
If it were up to me, I would abolish the preseason altogether, just because I want to see these prospects play in their leagues. There are guys who are in the CHL who don't get to play to begin their season because they're in the NHL playing fourth line preseason minutes. I don't like that. As a person who likes prospects, get them in their leagues, please, and just let guys win battles in training camp. I would get rid of it altogether. Maybe that's my hot take, but yeah, I don't like preseason either.
Yeah, you know what, man? I mean, I don't know if I'm quite there, but I'm not far behind. I think 1 or 2 games, get the boys warmed up and let's go. And that's what's happening next year. Now, this is a whole different conversation. We have 8 teams to talk about, so I won't go, too far down this rabbit hole. But I did not foresee 2 extra games. I didn't see a shortened preseason and a longer regular season. I did not see that coming. I don't really know how I feel about it, to be honest. I feel like it's already a lot of hockey. I don't know what 2 extra games does. Do you have any thoughts or opinions about this? It feels unnecessary to me. I know everything is about everything is about TV, and this might sound controversial. This is just the way it is. I'm not advocating for it or against it. It's about TV revenue and it's about gambling. That's really what sports is now when it comes to like the money that's being made on those 2 platforms, right? But do you have any thoughts on 2 extra games? Like, what's the point? To me, I don't understand.
When I'm doing like researching like stat stuff, maybe not now, but more so like a while ago, there was always that, oh yeah, they used to play 84 games back in the 90s for a few years, and they decided, wow, that's really stupid. Let's not do that anymore. And then they
Yeah.
go back to it. Like that confused me. That made me laugh because again, they tried it decades ago and they got rid of it, and now they want to go back. It's just so confusing. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just wonder what's next. 82 is enough hockey. I feel like maybe even too much hockey. I think 70 would be enough, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if
Yeah.
they go up from here.
And I mean, it's all like cyclical, but like last year wasn't too bad, but 2 seasons ago, you remember 2 seasons ago, the snails race at the end of the season?
Yeah,
Like
I
the
do.
Washington Capitals made it in and
Mhm.
they did not belong in the playoffs at that point 2 seasons ago. Like all these, like, oh my goodness, all these bad teams don't even want to be in
Mhm.
the playoffs, but someone has to get in. But anyway, we will move on. Today, like I said, is the Metro Division preview. The Pacific, if you're watching live, the Pacific division preview with my guy, your guy, Maddie from the Hockey Writers, Vancouver Canucks writer. He'll be joining me at 7:30 p.m. and then my Wi-Fi will cut out and then we'll restart at 8:30. So pick your time, whatever one you want to join. Once again, if you're listening on Spotify, then this will probably be in your feed at the same time. Before we get going, we'd like to let everybody know that this show is brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Right now with promo code SPORTS10, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the entire First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off selected cards. And with our promo code SPORTS10, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced cards, but sales items as well. Do the math on it. 20 becomes 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60. You get the idea. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code SPORTS10 for 10% off your order. Also, totalapexsports.com. Thank you guys, as always, for having us on board. Baseball playoffs right around the corner, basketball right around the corner, hockey right around the corner, football in full swing. They have a health website. They talk gambling. They talk gaming. They talk pop culture. They have it all. Go to totalapexmedia.com to check all of that out. And once again, thank you to them for having us on board. All right, let's get to it, Justin. We're going to go from the bottom of last year's standings up to the top. And unfortunately, or fortunately for you, I don't know which one it is. We're going to start with your Philadelphia Flyers. Last season, 33, 39, and 10, 76 points, 238 goals for, 286 goals against. Let's just start here, man. What were your takeaways from last season? I feel like in 2023-24, they were in, if I remember correctly, they were firmly in a playoff spot for a good portion of the 2024 portion of that season and kind of fell off a cliff as the season went on, which I think may have put expectations a tad high for them last season. And then as the season went on, it was very clear kind of what this team was. What were your takeaways from last season, and what are you looking towards when it comes to this season because and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about it, but everybody's painting this team as an automatic bottom feeder. And to me, like they have some players, and I'm curious to know your thoughts. But yeah, man, what do you take away from last season, and what are we looking at as 2025-26 rapidly approaches?
I think where the Flyers fell short last year was that they were trying to kind of be the same team that they were in 24, where they're fighting for every single point, and it just didn't work last year without the goaltending. They had the worst goaltending in the NHL by far, and that with that they had no chance. If you're saving like 87% of shots, yes, that's how bad it was. You have no chance. And they were kind of playing like they had, good goaltending, but they didn't. They played this very, I guess, like hyper defensive style, block every shot, all like fighting for every single point, like I said, but it just didn't work out. This season, I think they can have a new identity, especially with the coaching changes. Um, it's a new environment. It's a breath of fresh air, I would say. That's the best way to describe it. Um, the environment just was very, I would say, toxic. We don't know everything about it, what went on with Tortorella and the team around him, but it felt very toxic. And even the players, Sean Couturier, look at what he's saying to the media now. Just a lot of dysfunction. And I guess getting rid of that, having a brand new start with a guy like Tocchet, who is known for his communication, for how good he is with players. Yes, he is hard on them, but he communicates well. That's kind of the word. And, that's kind of their upside, the Flyers, where everything is changing here. They got rid of basically everybody on the coaching staff, and they add Trevor Zegras as well. Last couple of years haven't been great for him, especially injury-wise, but he's also been playing on the wing. And from what I saw of him last year, I think he's kind of the same player that he was at his peak. If he plays at center again, he could be that 60-point guy again, maybe even 70, 80. That's a reasonable ceiling. Obviously, the floor is he's not going to get another contract. If he doesn't live up to expectations, that's his floor. But I believe in the ceiling, and I believe he can hit it. But again, we'll have to see. It's just a very different team in terms of philosophy and what we might see on the ice. But still, the goaltending issues are the same, I think. Dan Vladar was an interesting signing. He's a good backup. But when you add that to the team with the worst goaltending in the league, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Maybe it does. It's very possible. And if Sam Ersson isn't getting an incredible workload again, maybe that just kind of all balances out. Again, I think they had like an 878 team save percentage last year, something around there. It was really, really bad. I think it would be hard to finish worse than that, especially with Vladar, instead of two rookies like Fedotov and Kolosov, which the Flyers had last year as their backups. So, yeah, maybe that improves, and you see some slight improvements in defense maybe, and the whole new coaching staff changes everything up. But even with that, it is a very wild card team, the Flyers are, where you don't really know what's going to happen with them. They could be in the basement again. That's very possible. They could be competitive. I think that's probably the best case scenario, is that they're close to a wild card team. I don't think they get it, but I think they can be competitive. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle between they're very competitive, almost a wild card team, to basement. I'm in the middle of that, like 80, 85 points they can reach. Not a huge improvement on last year, but an improvement nonetheless, and also not as good as they were in 24. I'm going to be looking to Matvei Michkov to really take that next step. When he was getting top line minutes last year, which was toward the end of the year after Tortorella got fired, for 9 games, he had I believe it was 12 points. I mean, that's superstar production. It's a small sample size, but you could really see the impact. This is not just a guy scoring on empty nets. This is a guy who was genuinely changing the outcomes of games because his ice time went from second line to first line. And if you have that over a full season, could be pretty good. It could outscore kind of the goaltending woes, the defensive question marks, where you don't really know what to expect from that defense. Again, I'll repeat, with the new coaching staff, that changes everything. So we'll see what Michkov can do. I think he is definitely their X factor. The heights he reaches, that will heavily influence where they finish in the standings. But long-term future, I have a lot of hope for him. That's where the Flyers are concerned. Long-term, they don't really care about this season. It's kind of a transitional year. So yeah, but you're hoping to see some good signs. Maybe some rookies make the team, make an impact, and Michkov take that true superstar step forward. That would be a successful season for the Flyers, not necessarily making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about down there, but up here, the whole joke all season last year, especially the first half of the season for Michkov, was how many games will he be benched? Like, what's like the over under where Tortorella like benches him to teach him some lesson? You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of the joke. Like here, I don't know what it was like down there. Yeah, man. I mean, like this team, they kind of remind me, not quite the same, but they kind of remind me like one of my favorite picks last year before the season started was the Calgary Flames to make the playoffs. Not because I necessarily thought that they would, but everyone thought that that team was going to be like rock bottom awful. And I'm looking at their roster and I'm like there's some good players here. Like, I don't know if this team will be like rock bottom. And I kind of feel that way here. I think Vladar, like, ideally, do you want him to be your number one goaltender? Probably not. But you hit on it, man. Sammy boy, he was starting way too much over the last couple of years. And the whole Carter Hart situation, it wasn't necessarily like the game plan, right? That wasn't the plan. But just the way things went, like that's what happened. And he just played way too much. I don't mind that tandem. Now, with Vladar, Sammy's still probably going to have to play quite a bit. I don't know what you would think, but reasonably probably 50-50, 60-40. Like, I don't think it's going to be like Vladar getting 60 starts, right? And you know, Sammy only getting like 22. Like, it's probably going to be pretty split down the middle. You nailed on it. I think like your top six, in my opinion, is pretty good. Like, you have like Michkov, Couturier, Konechny, Forrester, Zegras, Tippett, who I thought Tippett took a real step back last year after the year he had before. That'll be curious to see. And you commented on the first edition of our podcast before my Wi-Fi completely derailed the whole thing that Couturier is coming out and talking about, without really saying it, the negative effect that John Tortorella had last year. And so you're looking at these players who took these steps back last season. What does that mean for this year, right? Rick Tocchet, players seem to love playing for him. He wanted to leave Vancouver. I don't think they might make you think that the feeling was mutual. I don't think it was the case. We'll talk about that with our guy Maddie tonight for sure. But it's a pretty good top six. Now, the bottom six, it gets a little bit shaky, but you touched on it. It's the defense that's really the problem here to me. There are a few problems, but I don't hate Vladar. But with that defense, I mean, for Pete's sake, man, we're going to talk about the Rangers soon. Shesterkin had an off year because that defense couldn't like play structured hockey to save their life. And Shesterkin's one of the best goalies in the world. You know what I mean? So that to me is probably the issue more than anything for this team.
Yeah, I would agree. it's not that they're bad per se, but there are a lot of guys who are playing above their weight class. Sanheim, he's like number one defense, getting 25 minutes a night, top 5 minutes in the NHL type of defenseman. No, he's not that. With all due respect to what he brings, he was signed to an 8-year deal worth 6.25 million per year a couple seasons ago because he was a very good number 3 defenseman. That's very good number 3 money. So why is he playing number 1 minutes? Because the Flyers are rebuilding, and that's not necessarily fair to him, but that's just kind of the reality. Cam York as well. He's kind of Sanheim's partner in crime. He's playing above his weight class, and that's just kind of how it's going to be for a rebuilding team when you trade guys. Not that they had many guys to begin with, but you're trading guys, and guys just have to step up, and that's hard to do for a full 82 game season. So that's really where I think the issue comes into play. Like, I think York has some good skills, and Sanheim does as well. Both can, move the puck. Both Sanheim can carry the puck, but they're just being asked to do too much, I feel. And that's the same thing with the goaltending. They're being asked to do too much, and it might look okay on paper, but it does have these lasting effects over an 82 game season where they kind of can fall apart and have consistency issues. And that's just the case with a rebuilding team. A lot of these rebuilding teams.
100%. It reminds me, talking about Sanheim, it reminds me 2010's Dion Phaneuf with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, this fan base were hating on Dion so hard. And he, at that point in his career, he was not a number one defenseman anymore. And the fact that he was asked to be in that position, what just made everybody hate him. And it's like, if this guy was like third line, then it would be all right. But this just isn't the place for him to be. It'll be interesting to watch this Flyers team moving forward. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, another team that everybody is pegging to be at the bottom of the league. And this one, I think the Flyers will be competitive. I think the issue with the Flyers, more than their own issues, is the fact that the Ottawa Senators will be as good as they were last year. I don't know if they'll be like better than they were, but they'll be as good. I think Montreal is set to be better than they were last year. Now they're kind of the darlings right now, like the Predators were last year. And like, look how that turned out. I think Columbus, like, they're going to be right there again. The Rangers aren't going to be as bad as they were last year. The Islanders, I don't really know. We're going to talk about them in a couple minutes, but I think that they'll be competitive this season with the roster that they have. So to me, it's not even so much the Flyers. I mean, they have their issues, but it's more so just, I think everybody else around them is either the same or a little bit better. Everybody except for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Everybody saying this team is going to be bottom of the league, in the running for first overall in the draft pick situation. 34, 36, and 12, 80 points, 243 goals against, or goals for, 293 against, minus 50 goal differential. I don't even know really what to say about this team, to be quite honest with you. When we talk about predictions and for those in like the gambling space and talking about like sports betting and all that kind of stuff, or if you're just talking about like normal predictions, not the degenerate predictions, but just normal predictions. I don't really know what to do with this team because it feels like everyone's going to be gone by the time the trade deadline comes around. We're talking about Raquel, Rust, Carlson, just to name a few. I know everybody wants Sidney Crosby out of there. That's a different conversation. I feel like Tristan Jarry has to be the Tristan Jarry of a few years ago, but with that like decor, I don't really know how that's possible. I mean, what do we say about this team, dude? I really don't feel the need to spend that much time on this. I think they're going to be bad. I think they got some okay players. But I think that Kyle Dubas has finally waved the white flag, and is going to stop this ridiculous attempt to be relevant. And I just think it's all going to go to the way it should have been 2-3 years ago. What say you about the Pittsburgh Penguins in 25-26?
Well, you said it at the start without really saying it. They gave up a lot of goals, and they kind of addressed their goaltending in the offseason with seal-offs, but
Yeah.
I'm still not too enthused. I feel similarly with the Flyers. Maybe I feel a little bit better about Pittsburgh. I'm not sure. Maybe I feel worse. But they're kind of in that same tier where it's like they could be better, and that could help their standing position because they were, again, they gave up a lot of goals last year, and their goaltending specifically was a reason for that. It was leaky. I saw it when I was watching Penguins games. It reminded me of the Flyers. I was like, wow, there's another team like the Flyers out here. The only team that was as leaky, in my opinion, as the Flyers were in net. And if that improves just a little bit, then maybe that improves their ceiling. Maybe they can go from, I think they were at 80 last year, they can go to maybe 85. They didn't change the roster a ton. However, it'll all depend on what they do at the deadline with guys like Rust, with guys like Raquel, as you mentioned. Maybe Carlson stays. He's kind of a bigger contract. Guys like Rust and Raquel are easier to move. But if those guys are gone, even though it doesn't seem like much, these are legitimate 30 goal, 60 point. I think Raquel had 70 last year. These are guys who can really help Crosby and your top six to score goals. And you need goals to win games. And you get rid of those guys and you have some more, I guess, questionable finishers and scorers. And all of a sudden, it just becomes harder to score goals. Guys aren't finishing on Crosby's passes. You can trust Russ to do that. You can trust Raquel to do that. And if they're gone, that shakes everything up and makes everything hard. But I do still like kind of the youth that they have. I don't think their prospect pool at this moment is great, but I do like some of their under, I guess, like 24 or so guys. Ville Koivunen is one that I noticed last year. Great year in the AHL. He came up to the NHL, had 7 points in 8 games. I don't think he's going to score at that pace again, but I do think he can be a top 6 player for this Penguins team because they don't have much else there. And, if he's playing with like Crosby or Malkin, I think he could have a good year. Like 40 points are pretty reasonable. I wouldn't say he's a Calder guy, but he's under the radar in that sense. So yeah, they have some guys there that I'm interested to see, but I am questionable in the ceiling because, again, with Sidney Crosby being as good as he has been constantly, they were still only an 80-point team last year. And, I think he had 94 or so points, something like that. I don't know. But he was a really good player. He was a superstar player, and still they were bad. Usually I say you're as good as your best player is, but with the Penguins, they just have nothing else other than Crosby, really. And with the goaltending, it's just, if it's not any better, then they're destined for the basement again. I don't think they're as bad as teams like Chicago, maybe San Jose, maybe Nashville, but I do think they're maybe in that conversation. I don't have them number 1 pick material yet, but maybe they get lucky in the lottery, or maybe their goaltending really is that bad and they trade guys at the deadline and they fall apart at the end of the season. That's possible. But I think they're kind of in that Philly range. I might have the Flyers 1 spot higher in the division at 7th, not to spoil anything, but yeah, I view Philly a little bit higher just because the ceiling, there's question marks about the Flyers, like good question marks, and not the Penguins where it's like, nothing really good can happen. Even in your best case scenario, you're probably like an 85-point team, whereas the Flyers, their best case scenario might be a wild card team. And again, very best case scenario. But for Pittsburgh, I just don't see the upside with them at this point.
Yeah, and I feel like Philly has a path forward where there is not a clear path forward. Like, to me, so this is my personal opinion. Maybe it means nothing. Take it for what it's worth. In the next 3 seasons, the Penguins have 3 first-round draft picks, so 1 per season for the next 3 seasons. In 26, they have 3 second-rounders. In 27, they have 2 second-rounders. In 28, they have 2 second-rounders. In the third round, in 26, they have 2, and then 3, and then 2. That's a lot of draft picks in the next 3 seasons, just in the first 3 rounds. So, like for me, and I'm not saying they're going to be awful for the next 3 seasons. I'm just saying, like, there's no reason to keep these guys. There's none. And we all know the Crosby conversation. And listen, Crosby and Rust, not the same. Crosby and Raquel, Crosby and Carlson, those guys should not get a say. And if there's no trade things in their deals, since everybody in the NHL has one of those things apparently now, it's not the same. We all get it. Sidney, one of the best players to ever do it, he gets to write his ticket. I understand that. But for these other guys, no one should get a say in anything. If it's better for the team that you're gone, you should be gone. And Sidney, like, listen, Crosby knew what he was signing when he signed that contract last season. He knew what he was signing up for. He knew that this team was not going to be competitive. This is Sidney Crosby we're talking about. I refuse to believe that Crosby was looking at the roster and then looking at the contract, looking at the roster, looking at the contract and saying, you know what, we're going to be awesome. I refuse to believe that he felt that way. So it'll be curious to see. I think I agree with you in what you're saying. I don't think they're rock bottom material yet, but I think that they will be, because I think that the majority of the decent players on this roster will be out the door, in my opinion. That's just how I feel about it. All right, moving on to the New York Islanders. Talk about, dude, in the NBA, the Mavericks getting the first overall pick. In the NHL, the Islanders getting the first overall pick. Like, talk about lottery, man. This is ridiculous. 28-33. Wait, I messed that up. 35, 35, and 12, 82 points last season, 224 goals for, 260 goals against, minus 36 goal differential. The New York Islanders. I'm curious to what you feel about this team, because, like I said, I just think, like, I know that every year there are teams who made it to the playoffs the previous year who, like, fall off the map like the year after, right? We saw it with the Predators. We saw it with the Rangers. We saw it with the Canucks. This happens. However, I just look at, if the Rangers missed the playoffs last year, they're going to be fighting for a spot. Like I already said, the Canadians got better. Like, Ottawa's still a good team. I just don't see a spot for the Islanders. However, I look at their roster and they have to be more competitive than they were last year. I think if their goaltending, they got Big Save Dave back there, right? As the backup goalie now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's a pretty good tandem. So for me, I just, like, once again, I don't have too much to say about the Islanders. I just feel like they're going to be better than last year, but that top 8 is just going to be a really hard top 8 to break if you're not already in a position to do so. What do you think about the 25-26 New York Islanders?
I feel like they are an interesting team, especially with the additions that they made. And I guess Barzal is basically an addition. He missed, I believe it was 52 games last year. He was never truly healthy. And Barzal, when he is healthy, he is legitimately one of the, I don't want to say one of the best players in the league, but he is like a top 50 player in the NHL. He really does have that impact. And, you add him to the top line, that really does make a difference. And you add Matthew Schaefer. If depending on what minutes he gets, I think it's a given that he's going to make the NHL team. It's just a matter of how the Islanders want to use him. I think he's immediately ready for top 4 minutes. Yes, he hasn't played like real hockey since December of last year, if you're excluding preseason. So that's tough on a player for sure. Uh, the injuries he dealt with, and even going before his injury in World Juniors. However, I do think he's ready. He has the skill set. He is. He reminds me a lot of Miro Heiskanen. I know a lot of people said that before, but that was my immediate thought with Schaefer. That he reminds me of Miro Heiskanen, who entered the league at a young age as well, and had a huge impact right away as well. I
It's a
think
pretty
you're
good
looking at,
comparison.
yeah,
It's a pretty good guy to be compared to.
yeah, for sure. I think he's going to be a Norris type guy at some point. Obviously, not right away, but I think as a rookie, he could be this star level defenseman. It is possible to be in that kind of range, be borderline star level, even though he's a teenage defenseman coming off an injured draft year. But he really is that special. And like I said, that makes a difference. Yes, you got rid of Dobson, and that really hurts. But I wouldn't say he's going to mitigate that. I think they're going to feel that loss pretty heavily. But it's going to be something fun to watch for sure. And also another addition, I don't know how to pronounce his name because I don't speak Russian, but I think it's Shabanov. He was
Yeah.
terrific in the KHL last year. Super fun player to watch. He is an electric hockey player. I think he is immediately a top 9 type forward for them, even though he's small. I think he can make plays, and if he can, that adds a lot to your offense. And they need the scoring, and I trust Sorokin in net. He is, to me, one of the 5 best goalies in the NHL right now.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Maybe hot take, I guess, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's very talented, and he is their superstar. He's going to win them games by himself. Similar to, you look at Calgary last year, who you mentioned, this is a goalie who can steal maybe a not so good team wins, but I think they have maybe a better surrounding core than Calgary. They have more offensive weapons, I would say. So the ceiling here is a pretty good team.
Yeah.
If Sorokin is really legit, he harnesses that Vesna form that he's shown before. I don't know if he does, but I do think they're going to be competitive. I view them like a Flyers type team, but I think they're better. I think they're a step, maybe 2 steps better. I am more convinced that they can be a good team, but they are like this wild card. Like, what's really going to happen? Because last year we just went so off the rails immediately with Barzal getting hurt and never truly playing the type of hockey that he can play. Um, yeah, I just like some of the pieces here. Losing Nelson, though, at the deadline kind of complicates things. So I think they'll be better than the 82-point season they were, but maybe not a lot. I do think they'll be competitive, though, for most of the season.
Yeah. And like the good thing, and again, this is my personal opinion. This is why we play the games. Like, we'll see what happens. I don't think Detroit's going to be very good this year, personally. I don't think Buffalo is going to be good ever again. I'm so sick of the Buffalo conversation, and I feel so bad for the fans out there. I hope that you Buffalo Sabres fans are also football fans, because if you are, then you got something that kind of saves you a bit. If you're not a football fan, then I don't really know. I think the Eagles and the Bills, that's my Super Bowl pick, those 2 teams. So if you like Josh Allen, you'll be okay, but if not, it's going to be another long season for you. That's my opinion. My point is, like I already said, I do think the Rangers will be better. We'll see what Washington does. I don't know how many wild card spots are going to be. Like, I really think Ottawa, Montreal kind of has, and like the Rangers kind of have that like head start. I think if you're in the Metro and you're going to make the playoffs, I think you got to crack the top 3. Like, that's my personal opinion. So that's why, with regards to playoffs, I don't know if the Islanders can really get there, because if it is like the Senators and the Canadians who are kind of, in my opinion, shoot into that spot. And then, like I said, the Rangers, the Capitals, we'll see kind of what happens there. That's why I think it'll be difficult for the Islanders. However, and we used to joke about this all the time in the previous edition of this show that I was doing for the last couple of years. The Islanders have just been the most boring hockey team forever. Like, I have friends who are diehard fans and they go to the games all the time and they love it. As a guy who watches hockey every single night from 7 till midnight every night, I watch this league. I avoid the Islanders at all costs, and they seem like a really fun watch this year. They seem like a team that'll actually be fun to watch. Like you said, score goals. Like Duclair, I'm really interested what he brings, because he was hurt for almost all of last season as well. Like you said about Barzal, and not that Duclair is some game breaker, but he's a really good high, what's the word I'm looking for? High, I don't know. He brings it, is what I'm saying. He brings it. You know what I mean? So I'll be curious to see. And yeah, dude, I also think with Sorokin, having Varlamov back there last season, that's Patty's guy, And I think that kind of became a little bit of a circus. And I think now that Big Save Dave's back there, there's no, does Patty like me? Like, I think it's like Sorokin's the guy, you know what I mean? Where I do think that kind of became a conversation last season, was like, Patty loves himself some Varlamov, and maybe there's a competition where I think that's, like, personally, nothing against Varlamov. I think that's nonsense. So I'm happy to see that kind of drama set aside. Any last thoughts about the Islanders before we move on?
You made a good point on Duclair. I wasn't positive if he was hurt the whole year. I just didn't remember, but I know he was hurt. And
for a long time, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good, like, another top 9 type addition. Again, losing Nelson kind of stinks. I mean, I love their trade return. They're kind of thinking for the future.
Yes.
But also, I think their present team isn't bad at all. I don't think they're, even last year they weren't bad. They just happened to get the number 1 pick, moving up a bunch of slots in the draft. So I do see them as being competitive. I think that's almost the only option for them. But we'll see how losing Dobson affects them, because that is a number 1 defenseman that they didn't replace. Schaefer is, I feel like he's going to be good, but not number 1 defenseman good right away. So they're, again, like, the bottom 3 teams are kind of like these wild card teams where you don't really know what's going to happen. Well, I guess more so the Flyers and Islanders and Pittsburgh, but yeah, they could have a high ceiling, low floor type teams potentially.
100%. Couldn't agree more. All right, moving on to the New York Rangers. The guy that I do the football show with, my buddy Joe, he's a diehard Rangers fan, and he said he was going to tune in during his lunch break. Well, we had I keep saying we in our, it was me. I had a Wi-Fi disaster, so I don't know if he's still hanging out with us or not, but he was curious as to what we were going to say. He's a Rangers fan. And dude, sometimes So I'll just kind of lay this out real quick here. Rangers last season, 39, 36, and 7, 85 points, 256 goals for, 255 goals against, plus 1 goal differential, just right down the middle of the road in that category. Sometimes, and I feel like as writers and as people who watch the sport objectively for the most part, we try to not let recency bias kind of take control, but it's really hard not to. Like 2 years ago, the Rangers were President's Trophy winners, right? They got to the conference final, and Florida was they were just destiny. Like no one was beating the Panthers. It didn't matter who made it through. Same thing last season, apparently. Although the Panthers fooled us heading into the postseason, I picked Tampa to win that series, but I digress. The Rangers was so bad last year, and the drama, like the fact that they were 39, 36, and whatever I said, 39, 36, and 7, kind of doesn't tell the story of how bad that season was last year. Like it was really drama filled. They started the season great. Wasn't it like they were like 12-4-1 or 9-4-1 or something like that? And then the wheels just fell off. And then we know, JT Miller came in and that whole thing. And, Kreider leaving, Trouba being traded and all this like nonsense. And teams, just a quick side note, teams like the Rangers and the Canucks, their management, they caused the drama all on their own. Like it was like whatever's happening in the locker room is whatever's happening. But Chris Drury is like, in my opinion, he tanked that season last year, but that's a whole different conversation. But you look at the roster, I mean, we all know Kreider's gone. You still got Panarin there, Trocheck, Lafreniere, who still we're waiting to see if he's going to take another step. There's glimpses, but it's about time he needs to take that next step, especially first year of a 7.5 for 7-year deal. He needs to take that next step. You have JT Miller, the newly named captain, JT Miller. You have Zibanejad, who is always like, is he, isn't he? Like, what is Zibanejad? Like, we don't really know anymore. Cooley, and then the bottom 6 is like fine, but like not really more than fine, in my opinion. And the defense, Fox is a very, very good defenseman who had a bad year last year. And my defense to him would be the whole team had a bad season. So let's just clean it up, move on. Adding Gavrikov, I think I don't think the Rangers had as big of an offseason as they would like to have. Although they did add Mike Sullivan, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, which was huge. Whether you like it or don't like it, it's a big move. I know people who think he's washed, but whether or not you agree with it, it was a big move. If they addressed anything at all, it was adding Gavrikov. That was like something that needed to happen. That defense was brutal last year. So where are you at, man, with this team? Part of me thinks that they're going to be better simply for the fact that they have to be. Like it can't be what we saw last year. But realistically, what do you see for this team heading into this season?
I'm sort of in the middle. I do see a world where they're great again, but I also see a world where they're the same exact team. Because first of all, you look at their top 6, they're very old. And when you're in your 30s, you're not getting better. It's very rare for that to happen. Panarin is about to be 34. Zibanejad is in his 30s, and he had his first like really down year of his career. I don't see that getting better. JT Miller, still a high impact player, but do you expect him to get better? Not really. Again, given that age. And you have a guy like Trocheck. He kind of does it all, but he's, I think, 32 now. Do I expect him to get better? No. So when you have all these guys, all these veteran guys, I don't expect them to get better. And when you have an unproven bottom six, bunch of young guys, they could be great, but they're unproven. There is a world where they're the same exact team. However, I do like guys like Gabe Perreault. I think he can instantly become maybe a I don't know because he is coming over from college, hasn't played pro yet. Well, he did. He played I think like a few games with the Rangers last year, but he hasn't gone pro yet. And we'll see. Can he be a top six contributor? That's basically what the Rangers need. They need Lafreniere to take a step. Will he? We don't really know. And they're relying on those young forwards to take a step and those veterans to either stagnate or improve just a little bit. I don't know if that happens. We'll see. The real improvement for me is the defense, uh, specifically adding Gavrikov, like you said. Adam Fox, to me, I have him as a top three defenseman in the NHL. I think he was great last year, even though, the numbers were great. It's just that for his entire career, he has been playing with I'll call it the way it is, like a bottom pairing defenseman, arguably seventh defenseman in Lindgren.
Yeah.
And that is totally unfair to Adam Fox. He has not had a legitimate D partner his entire career. And yet still he's outscoring teams at a 60% rate at 5-on-5. That is incredible stuff. So when you add Gavrikov there, a legitimate top pairing guy, shutdown guy, yeah, the Rangers could be a lot better this year if their top pairing is that broken, it's that unbeatable. These guys are getting, 25 minutes a night, right around there or so. Yeah, that could have a big impact. And you also look at special teams. Their power play took a huge step back last year, and that's where a lot of their scoring came from. Their power
Big
play can
time.
improve. I mean, they have a new head coach, so it can improve. I think 5-on-5, maybe the older guys stay stagnant, but on the power play, I think they can improve. And if they do improve, then maybe this is a 100-point team again. And obviously, you have Shesterkin, who I mentioned Wolf and Sorokin as guys who can like win their team's games. Shesterkin is the same way. He can change the outcome of games. He can change the outcome of a season. That is how talented he is. And he has a little bit more help defensively than he did a year ago. So we'll see. I'm not too thrilled, I would say, about the defense behind Gavrikov and Fox, but I do see a world where, Shesterkin is a borderline MVP type player. It's very possible. And so even though you're older in the top six and kind of unproven in the bottom six, it doesn't matter because you just take all these steps in other places. So I do think they can be good. I might be a little bit more cautious with them and say they're like a 90-point team, borderline wild card, but not in it.
Yeah.
But I do understand that they have a ceiling, a legit ceiling that they get back in the playoffs. They're a top three team in the division again, but they're gonna have to prove me, prove me wrong. I won't believe it until I see them truly take that next step with Sullivan as their coach now.
Yeah, and I mean, similar to other conversations that we've had with these different teams, the curious thing for me where we watch the first couple months and kind of see what this team is, I see a world, and I'm not saying this is like, I personally like Washington going into the season last year. A lot of people had Washington missing the playoffs, and I just didn't understand it. Like, I just thought that they did a really good job last summer, and I didn't think that they were gonna, be the number one team in the East or nothing like that. But I thought Washington was a good team coming into the season last year. I think that they are still a good team. However, there's absolutely a world where the Capitals and the Devils both take significant steps back. And there's also a world where they take steps forward. I know that's kind of the coward's answer, but it just kind of makes sense with those two teams. So that'll be interesting to see. Before we move on, because I do want to move on to the Blue Jackets, but I do want to ask you, I'm hearing a lot of, like I kind of hinted before, I'm hearing a lot of mixed opinions about this Mike Sullivan hire, and I'm really curious to what you think because his resume speaks for itself. However, the success of his resume was a long time ago, and the Penguins have not been good. Not saying it's him, the roster. We talked about the Penguins for, but do you think he is still a guy? Or do you think that this is kind of a shot in the dark? Because I'm hearing like both sides, and I think both sides are plausible. Uh, so I'm going to plead the fifth, and I would love to know what you think about it.
I mean, there are coaching, I guess, nerds who like Sullivan a lot still. They like, the what he provides, the all the tactical stuff. I mean, I'm not sure. I wasn't when the Flyers were searching for a coach. I didn't really want Sullivan, but I mean, there were people that tried to convince me otherwise. So, we'll see. Um, I don't know how much of an upgrade it is, but it is change, and they needed change. So, we'll see what happens. But Sullivan is still pretty highly regarded. So,
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
said, we'll see. I don't really know what to think about that and what he'll bring to a very, very different Rangers team, very different strengths and weaknesses than the Penguins have.
I will say, I agree with what you said about they needed change. However, at the same time, this is one of the things about the NHL that drives me insane. How a head coach can win the President's Trophy and 12 months later, he doesn't have a job. It's crazy, this league, how we just file through coaches. It's crazy, but we'll see what Mike Sullivan brings as the season moves along. Moving on to what is undoubtedly one of, if not the feel-good story of the season last year. We all know about the tragedy before the season started. They had a tragedy a couple summers before that. It's been a tough stretch as far as the tragedies go. It's in the last few summers for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think projecting what this team was going to be was really hard to do because it's just awful what happened. And how does a team bounce back? How does a team recover? We all know the story of Sean Monahan, who literally signed with the Blue Jackets to be with Gaudreau. And so, what's this team going to be? And they were awesome. And obviously, I say awesome. They missed the playoffs. They couldn't stop a puck, to save their lives. But one thing about Blue Jackets games, you had your feet up and your popcorn ready, bro. Like, they were really fun to watch. It was 6-5 all season. I believe they were one of the highest scoring teams last season, 5-on-5. I don't think the highest, but they were up there with like one of the highest teams, 5-on-5. I think they have a lot of really good talent. I'm hearing a lot of people. I'll just like lay it out here: 40, 33, and 9, 89 points, 273 goals for, 268 goals against. So they're just like, once again, kind of right there. I'm hearing a lot of people, because of the fact they have over 13 million in cap space, a lot of people who were really down on the summer that they had. And I didn't really see it that way. I thought that they added pieces that they needed. I also think that just because you have the money doesn't mean you need to dump it on players that you don't want on your roster. Obviously, Mitch Marner was a guy that they were linked to. No disrespect to Columbus. He wasn't going to Columbus. I will say I've been to Columbus quite a few times. You probably wouldn't expect this. The best chicken wings I've ever had in Columbus. I don't know. I can't remember the place. It was a small little takeout joint. Can't remember. I wish I could shout it out. Best chicken wings of my life. I don't know if that's a thing in Columbus, but it was phenomenal. Moving on, that wasn't going to bring Mitch Marner to Columbus, right? So I don't really personally mind the summer they had. I think Charlie Coyle, third line center, is his best behind him. I don't know, but I don't mind that depth piece. If Sean Monahan can stay healthy, Fantilli he was like a revelation last year. I thought he took a great step forward. If like Jenner can stay healthy, like Marchenko on the back end between like Werenski and Marchenko, just 2+ points every night. Those guys were just rock stars. I find it hard to believe that after the season we saw last year, I think this team is going to be competing for a wild card spot all year long. And I really, really like the outlook of this team. And while people are down on the summer that they had, I think they were clearly ahead of schedule last season, and they're just staying the course, and they added some depth pieces kind of here and there. But what do you make of the Columbus Blue Jackets? Once again, I've already waxed poetic about what I think about Ottawa and Montreal and blah blah blah. But I think the Blue Jackets are going to be right there, and it would not shock me if this team finds a way to make the wild card.
Yeah, I feel similarly. You did mention that Monahan got hurt, which is a good point, but he was also unsustainable, I think, in terms of his 5-on-5 output. The team as a
That's
whole
fair.
had
Yep.
unsustainable 5-on-5 output. So it's just really interesting because a lot of their top 5-on-5 guys were hurt for a lot of the year, guys like Jenner and Monahan. So, we'll see what happens with that, if their scoring was sustainable. I do like the young guys that they have there. Kent Johnson had a great under the radar season. Marchenko was phenomenal. I think he entered that borderline top, I would say 30 winger conversation. He was fantastic for them. And then you have Fantilli, who I think is set to take another step. I loved him as a prospect, and he hasn't got off to the really immediate star type of start you'd maybe think for a guy who most people had going number 2 in that draft, a very stacked draft. However, he is already a top 6 guy. I think he could maybe take that step into a true top line guy this year. And if he does, then this team could be a little bit better. Werenski, a lot of people are saying that his output was unsustainable. I think I'm in the middle. I don't think he's going to score 82 points again. I think that's how many he had. But I do think he always was that type of player, that he's an MVP caliber player. He always has been. He is your best puck carrier. He is your best defenseman. And he is also arguably your best scorer too, in terms of pure talent. So yeah, I think he is one of the best number 1 defensemen in the NHL. I don't think that will change. Really, the question mark for me is goaltending. Last year, you mentioned it, they weren't great, and they didn't do much to change that.
Yeah.
They did add Fedotov, but he didn't have the greatest year last year either. So maybe someone like Jet Greaves can take the step forward. He's had great numbers as a call-up, backup type of guy, but he hasn't really had the chance to show what he can do over a full season. So we'll see if maybe that's a storyline for their goaltending to improve. I like a lot of the young guys on their team, and if they can improve just a step more, then maybe they can be a playoff team. I personally would have them finishing just outside of them. Maybe a similar season they had last year. You account for they overachieved a little bit, and also the young guys getting better, and you combine that into one, and it's the same season they had. But still, their long-term future is good. you know, a lot of their young guys haven't even made the team yet. Their I think it was number 4 pick from 24 has not made the team yet. None of their, they just had what I thought was a pretty decent draft. Those guys aren't on the team yet from 25. So they're still building. But maybe when they put it all together, they're going to be a contender. They're not there yet. They're still kind of, I would say, toward the end of this rebuild. They're kind of in that transition process. But when they put it together, it could be a great team. But this year, borderline wild card, I would say.
Yeah, and I do think that it's gonna like Merzlikins. He has his moments, but definitely not a guy that you're full of trust, right? Like you're just like you kind of close your eyes and wait to see what's gonna happen. I don't think their goaltending is solid in. I think that the way and what kind of made me think about this was you're talking about like Werenski and how people say that it's not like sustainable. To me, it is sustainable because they have to play that way. They have to play offense first because their goaltending is not good enough. They have to outscore their problems. They just have to. We saw this with the Toronto Maple Leafs over the course of a few years before Berube got there, is that they had to win games 6-4 sometimes. That's just how it had to happen. And that's how I feel about this team. And then Berube came in and they're trying to win games 3-2 and blah, blah, blah. But right now, the Blue Jackets have to win games 6-5, 5-4. They just have to. The goaltending is not good enough to tighten up defensively and rely on your goaltending. That's how I feel about it. I could be wrong. I'm also interested to see people that I've been reading from the Blue Jackets and just from the league in general. It sounds like people are clamoring for Greaves. Like people want Jet Greaves. And I'm curious if we're going to see a Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart situation with, Merzlikins. Wow, I keep butchering that name. I'm not even going to try. I'm curious if like the first couple months, this guy is like, they're just not having it. And we finally see them put in Jet Greaves. I'm curious to see. I do think you make a valid point that his numbers were great in a very limited role. So it's hard to know with a goalie when you up his role, if it's going to continue. All right, moving on. 3 teams left. Everybody on Total Apex Media, on my Twitter and on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening on Spotify, we appreciate you for joining us as well. Once again, show brought to you by First Round Collectibles. Promo code SPORTS10 for 10% off your order. Regular priced and sales priced items, any sports card in the whole store, SPORTS10 for 10% off your order, and by Total Apex Media and TotalApexSports.com. Moving on with the New Jersey Devils. Last season, lost my place. Let me pull this up. New Jersey Devils, 42, 33-7, 91 points. They did make it into the playoffs after missing it the season before. Curious your thoughts on this team. I really like Sheldon Keefe. As a Leaf fan, I am a Keefe guy. I think it was time for him to leave. But I also just think it was time for him to leave. Like, I don't think it was so bad that like this guy has to get fired. I just think that they were doing the same thing over and over and over again, same group of players, same coach, and it was just time for him to move on. Now this summer, we saw Mitch Marner move on, and that's just kind of the progression of what's been happening in Leafland, is eventually things just have to change. With the Devils, I think he's a really good fit for that team. My biggest issue with the Devils, and I'm curious to know your perspective on this one. I just think there's holes. I think that their top players are really good. Like obviously Hughes, obviously Bratt, obviously Heischer. I think Mercer is inconsistent as it gets. Meyer, really good talent. Consistency is kind of an issue there as well. I think adding Donoff as a Dallas Stars writer and watching this guy, I can tell you Donoff is a terrific player. Just a really, really great role guy, uses the body. He'll score you 20 plus goals. Really good player. I really like that pickup for the Devils. Other than that, man, like Connor Brown kind of takes the regular season off and then comes alive in the playoffs. That's what we've seen for the Oilers. Glass, Palat, I just don't really, Cotter will have like a week where he scores like 7 goals in 4 games. Um, I just feel like there's just too many holes defensively. I see what they're trying to do. I like the top 4. I don't love the top 4. Goaltending wise, obviously having Markstrom back there, having Jake back there, I think that's a really top-notch tandem. This team just can't stay healthy, man. And between the holes that I see on like the bottom 6 and the inconsistency of the top 6, the talent is there, the goaltending is there, the defense is there, like 70% of it is there. Between the holes and the fact that one of their best players is hurt at all times, whether it's Jack Hughes, whether it's Hamilton, Luke Hughes, I don't even think he's signed yet, is he? That really bothers me. I feel like we see this across all sports, especially hockey and probably football as well. Missing training camp is a big deal, and it takes you a while to kind of get like back going when you miss training camp. We see it every year with someone. I have a hard time predicting what's going to happen with this team, as you can tell by the words coming out of my mouth. I don't know. There's a world where this team is a top 2 team in the division, and there's a world where this team is fighting for a wild card spot, and I don't know which one's which.
They basically were last year. If the Metro wasn't as bad as it was,
fair,
they were fighting for a wild card spot. Especially
that's
after
a good point.
Mostly after the Hughes injury, but yeah, they didn't have that many points for a top 3 team in the Metro. But I do think they have enough talent for me to say, yeah, this is a playoff team. Between Hughes, Heischer, Bratt on offense, and you have Hamilton. The health has been a consistent problem, and Luke Hughes, if he signs, or I guess when he will sign, but we don't know when that's going to be. If it's and there probably will be an adjustment period, as you mentioned. That's a very good point. You look at Jeremy Swayman last year; took him forever to sign, and then he had the worst year of his career. It's possible for Luke Hughes, but there's just so much talent there, and I like the top 6. I like the top 4. I like their goaltending, and when you have those things figured out, you're usually going to be pretty good because most teams do not have that figured out. So for the Devils, I like where they're headed. I do think they're going to be a playoff team, unless injuries devastate them like they have before. I like some of the things they added this offseason. You mentioned Dodonov. He can slot in on the first line if he needs to. He can really slot in anywhere. He did that for Dallas at times. He's very versatile. He can play bottom 6 if you need him to. He can play complementary first line with like Heischer or Jack Hughes if you need him to. So I like what they kind of did, and really how they're going to take a step. First of all, is being healthy, but second of all, is if Luke Hughes can build off where he ended last season. He was borderline point per game for like the last third of the year last season. very, I guess, kind of quietly, he was super, super productive. And, if he's a 60-point defenseman, then that'll be pretty big for the Devils. So we'll see. That's the biggest storyline for me when he signs, and what the adjustment is like. If it's all good and he picks up where he left off, then this could be 100-point team, and they could be competing for the number one spot in the division. If not, maybe they're closer to what they were last year, where they're like a borderline wild card, not really a contender to get anywhere beyond the first round. But again, I think the East is kind of open, so we'll see, especially with the Barkov injury that we just that just happened today.
Oh, that sucks, man.
Yeah, it does suck. We don't know when he's going to be back. I think it's like an ACL. If that's the case, then it's not just going to be the regular season.
Yeah.
It's going to be playoffs. It's going to be the
Yeah.
entire playoffs. And while it does suck, I love watching the Panthers. They were one of my favorite teams to watch last year. That opens up a window for every single team that's like not even close to Florida's level when they're at full strength, to kind of take that step that, hey, we can beat any team in this conference, if the Panthers don't have their best player. So the Devils could be that team. They could miss the playoffs. Like I said, they did a couple years ago. It's not that ridiculous to say. Anything's possible in this conference, I would say, because the wild card-ish teams were not really like cemented as wild card teams. They were barely better than Columbus, for example. So there could be some change there for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I keep going on about Montreal. I do think that they arrived ahead of schedule, but I don't think that they overachieved. Like, I just think that team, like when they were talking early in the season about potentially firing St. Louis, I was like, dude, no way, man. Like, I really liked what he was building there. And Ottawa, it's about time. Like this should have been Ottawa like 3 years ago. So to me, this is like, if Montreal is ahead of schedule, Ottawa is very late. So it'll be interesting to see who competes for that spot. 2 teams left to get to. The Carolina Hurricanes. They got, I guess, I don't know, this is off the top of my memory, I could be wrong about this, beside Mitch Marner, which, oh my God, I'm so sick of talking about Mitch Marner. I can't wait. Like, as a Toronto guy, not only talking about it, but just hearing Mitch Marner, and he's on his friggin' media tour now, telling everybody how hard it was in Toronto, and I'm just so sick of it. I can't even tell you. Anyway, besides Mitch Marner, getting Ehlers, probably the darling of the offseason besides Marner. They swung on Rantanen. They missed on Rantanen. I think Stankoven, again, as a Dallas guy, I think Stankoven is a terrific young player who has a very high ceiling, who still has a way to go. But I think to get him and a couple of firsts, obviously that's not Rantanen, but if Rantanen's leaving, you're going to get what you can. And I think that's a really good package, in my opinion. There were people who were like, that's not what Rantanen's worth. It's like, listen, you got to get something. And I personally really like that deal. Rantanen is a superstar. You're not going to get what Rantanen's worth. You're just not. So I personally like that deal. My issue, and once again, I will quickly lay this out. 47, 30, and 5, 99 points. I had a lot of predictions at the beginning of last season that I really liked. I really liked Montreal to make it to the playoffs. Again, for you degenerate gamblers, that was plus money. Washington Capitals to make the playoffs, that was plus money. I liked Calgary to make the playoffs, and they did, if you consider ties a thing, that was plus money. And I really liked Carolina to either be a wild card team or miss the playoffs. And I fell flat on my face with that one. They were terrific last season. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. That's how it is. To me, I don't see a world where this team does not win the division. Goaltending still concerns me. I think other than that, this roster is very well balanced. Forwards, defense, the goaltending, trusting in Freddie Anderson to not just move weird one day and be out for 3 months. Like, that's a thing. However, so that's for me. Barring a goaltender catastrophe, I don't see a world where this team that misses the playoffs. And I don't see a world where this team doesn't win the division. And I also don't see a world where this team doesn't lose in the second or third round again. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they did enough in the offseason to keep being what they already are. I don't see what they did to take that next step. We saw the Panthers build their identity in a way to beat Tampa Bay. And now they did that, and now they are what they are. And I just don't think the Hurricanes did enough, because that's the bar for teams like Hurricanes, teams like Dallas. The regular season doesn't matter. Miss the wild card team, top 3 in the division, win the division. It doesn't matter. It's all about getting past the Final Four. And I don't think they did enough to do that, but I still think they're one of the best teams in the conference, hands down.
Yeah, I would say the same. Their system, some people think it's boring. It does get boring sometimes. I'll admit they're kind of like, they remind me a little bit of the Islanders back when they were actually winning playoff series. But the Canes, they're basically destined to make the playoffs every single year. They just play too well structured. Even if they lose a guy like Sebastian Aho, who they did in, I think it was one playoff year a couple years back. And what did they do? They just dominated without their top guys. That's just kind of what they do. So no amount of injuries concerns me with Carolina. And I do think they got a lot better in the offseason compared to where they ended. Replacing Natchez with Rantanen, with Stankoven, I think is overall obviously a downgrade. I think that's inarguable. In the present, that is a downgrade. However, Nikolai Ehlers, he was one of my favorite underrated players. Agreed. I guess. I was saying that he should get $9 million for 8 years in the offseason, because even though the points in general aren't there, he was only getting second line minutes, and he had a star impact. You look at per 60 numbers, he was easily a star player, very much a difference maker, a game changer. Yes. For the Jets. And add him to Carolina, that's a big addition. And you also look at Keandre Miller. That's another guy who can handle top pairing minutes. One of the few guys on the Rangers who could do that. Actually, the only other guy aside from Fox.
And sorry to interrupt just real quickly. What's beautiful about him on this team is he only needs to play top line minutes if he has to. Like, he won't necessarily be called on for that. And I think that that's really good just for him. Also, to your point with Ehlers, as a Jets writer, I'll tell you, and I don't have to tell you, but telling the people watching and listening, that team with Mark Scheifele, with Kyle Connor, all these guys, if there's one player on that roster that you wanted to have the puck with 90 seconds left in a tie game or down by 1, it was him. And I think that is something come playoff time that is going to be super clutch for this team.
Yeah, wasn't he the one who got the assist on the last second goal against the Blues?
Yeah, with Perfetti. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, the same thing at the time when it was unfolding. I was like, this is the guy who you want to have the puck.
100%.
Ehlers is incredible. And yeah, I've always been a big fan of his. Also adding, and again, Russian guys. I don't speak Russian. I don't know what they're saying on the KHL broadcast. I think it's pronounced Nikishin. Adding him, he did play a few games in the playoffs. Adding him, I think he's going to be a difference maker. He's kind of like the way I see it, like a Charlie McAvoy type player. Obviously, that's like a ceiling projection, but he plays similarly. Hits very hard. He hits very often. He is gifted offensively, very gifted offensively, and he's just kind of can do a little bit of everything for you. And he's not young. I mean, he is young, but he's not young. He has played pro. He played obviously in the playoffs briefly, but he did play in the Stanley Cup playoffs for Carolina, and that's important. Like that's an instant contributor. This isn't your normal rookie that is 19, 20 years old, going to take a few years. No, this guy can make an impact right away. And we'll see the kind of usage he gets. We'll see the impact he can have, but I think this team is better than they were last season. And I don't know if it'll matter in the playoffs. I don't know if it raises their ceiling from easy conference final exit to legitimately competitive for the cup, but it might. It's possible. And they're very, as you mentioned before with the Islanders, they're very Islanders-esque with their goaltending. They don't really commit. It was really for just a little bit for the Islanders where it was like, yeah, why don't we give Varlamov starts? No, they're not. Carolina's kind of similar in that way, where they don't really know who their starter is. So we'll see what they do if they commit to somebody. But that's not much of a storyline for me. I think they're as good as their skaters are, and that's where they'll win and lose in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think Freddie's the guy. Every once in a while, they're gonna, if he's not playing well, they might give him a break for a couple games. But I think that they want Freddie to be their guy. I just think that guy, like, he is going to, and I know this sounds like I'm making a joke. I'm really not trying to. He is going to move weird and be out randomly. Like that's just what happens to this guy. Or he gets like someone falls on him and he's out for a week and a half. Like that's just, or like longer. Like he's the king. And it was the same when he was here. He's the king of day to day becomes a month and a half. Like it's just how it is with him, and it's not meant to be like funny or disrespectful. It's just kind of the way that it goes. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch. I also think like, and this is so much easier said than done. Like I'm not saying that there was this guy waiting in the offseason that you could have gotten like to do this. The Florida Panthers, yes, they're skilled. Yes, they're good. They also are bullies and they don't care about you. Like they don't like they will in the middle of the cafeteria, they'll pull your pants down, slap you in the face, and take your milk money and not care. And by I mean like pants, in high school, someone just pantses you. That's what they do, and they don't even feel bad about it. And I feel like that's what you have to do to beat this team. And I just don't know what Carolina did to have that like meanness to them. And I'm curious to see. You're absolutely right about Barkov. That is a really tough blow. But something just tells me that the Panthers are just going to figure it out. Like it just feels like they're just going to roll on. Before we move on to the Washington Capitals and to wrap up this show, I know we've run long. Appreciate everybody for watching. Justin, I appreciate you for hanging out, man. I know I told you an hour and it's been not an hour. So I appreciate you hanging out. Before we move on, I just want to call something out. Twice now you mentioned a Russian name, and you didn't want to butcher it. I did the Winnipeg Jets preview for the hockey writers last week. Nemestikov. I was talking about Nemestikov. I don't know. Did you watch it? I don't know if you watched it, but
no, I did not.
Excuse me. I wanted to talk about Nemestikov, and my brain fell out of my head, and I could not pronounce his name to save my life. And Matt had to save me, and it's on YouTube. You can find it. Embarrassing. My head fell out of. I couldn't do it. So don't worry, man. It happens to all of us. I can't. I'm trying to. I just staring at the name, and I was like, how do I say this name? I couldn't remember. It was awful moment. Embarrassing.
No, that is a weird one. I used to think, I guess because my mind filled it in for me. Maybe like this is like a decade ago at this point. But when he was like just coming into the league, I was like Nemestenkinov or something like that. That's how I. And because my brain just filled it in for me without actually pronouncing it. And then one day I read it and I was like, wow, that's definitely not how you pronounce that. It's Nemesnikov. You can see it right there if you read it. But no, that's funny. And I remember Nikishin has played in playoff games, and I know they said his name on the broadcast. I did watch Carolina in the playoffs. I didn't skip those games, but you just forget. But I think I got them right. I think it's Shabanov and Nikishin, but
I think you're
right. A lot
of
people pronounce it differently.
I think you dialed it in, man. That's okay. Like once again, I was doing was it a round 1 or round 2 preview for the Dallas Stars, and I called Tyler Seguin.
Yeah.
And there's some guy in the YouTube chat who spelt out like the word C, like SEA dash, and I was like, frig, this is gonna come back to haunt me. All right, last team in the division. Once again, everybody, if you were hanging out with us through all of the technical difficulties and through this whole show, once again, appreciate it very, very much. The Washington Capitals, 111 points last year, 51, 22, and 9. Went from the worst goal differential in the league by a mile to not quite the best, but very close to the best. Top 5, I believe. Plus 56 goal differential, 288 goals for, 232 goals against. At home, they were unstoppable. On the road, they were good enough. Their shooting percentage was off the charts. Everything that went well, McMichael, Protoss, like just random guys just doing it all year long. Where are you at with this Washington Capitals team, man? Because they did what they did, and good on them. The season before that was so bad, and they made it into the playoffs, but they were not a good playoff team. They made it by default. They made it because Detroit didn't want to, and Buffalo faded as always, and and the Flyers faded away. Like they didn't make it because they were awesome. They made it by default. So, but then last year they were one of the best teams in the National Hockey League. So are we regressing to the mean? Are we a little bit worse than last year, but still really good? Are we going all the way backwards to what we saw 2 seasons ago? What do you make of? And also, just real quick, I loved the Logan Thompson signing. I was like, yo, this guy is one of the best backups in the league. Like, this is going to work out really well for them. But he is an unproven starter, right? And I know you have the backup, the name. Why is the name escaping me? Charlie Lindgren, who had 1 MVP vote a couple years ago, which is amazing. That's a really, really good duo if everything goes well, right? And there's that world where it could fall apart. So where are you looking at? What are you looking at? How do you look at this Washington Capitals team for the 25-26 season?
Well, I guess starting with the goaltending, usually with teams like that, and a guy who just came in, wasn't really a starter before, and then becomes a starter and has great numbers, usually I'm like, yeah, they're going to take a step back. But with Thompson, from the moment he entered the league, I was very impressed with him. I felt he was always a starter. I'm thinking back to when Dallas and Vegas were battling for that playoff spot in 22, I think it was. And he was awesome for them, I think, down the stretch. And yeah, I think Logan Thompson's legit. I really do. And so that's number one. I like the tandem they have. Lindgren fell back a lot last year. I don't think his numbers were great, but I do think he's a good backup, and I think he can be that. There's just a lot. There are too many aspects of this Washington team that I like to say that they're going to miss the
Yeah.
playoffs. Their defense, while I think it looks better on paper than it actually is, they have too many guys who can move pucks and handle top four responsibilities and excel in a top four role to say that they're going to miss the playoffs. Um, they're one of the few. They have one of the best defenses in the league. When considering that, I don't think they have this true X factor guy, but guys like Sandin, Carlson, Chychrun, they can all kind of handle that responsibility, and that is a really big thing. Um, and you look at the offense, Ovechkin is destined to take a step back. He had, I was looking at it. I have a chart somewhere. I don't know where I put it, but when you're looking at goals per 60 minutes among guys with like, I think it was 500 minutes of ice time in the entire advanced stats era going back to 2008, he had like the fourth best season of all time. Not just Ovechkin. He had his best season at 39 years old, and he was better than guys like, uh, Malkin and Crosby and Stamkos and everybody but like a couple Matthews seasons and one Pastrnak season. He was that
Yeah.
incredible. And of course, nobody 30 plus is even in his stratosphere. These are like mid 20s Matthews seasons and Pastrnak, like when those guys were in their prime. Ovechkin had such an unsustainable year that I don't think he's going to come anywhere close to what he was. I still think he's a star player. I don't think he is the fourth best goal scoring season of the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Good. I think that's reasonable to
Sure.
say at 40 years old. And he missed time with injury too. I don't know how he did it. He's inevitable.
Dude, not only did he miss,
I still think
Justin, not only did he miss time, he missed like a day. Like the guy broke his leg. He was out for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What was it? Like 5 weeks? 4 weeks?
Something like that. It was a lot. He returned a lot sooner than I thought he would.
Dude,
I thought the chase was
he's
done at that
almost
point.
40,
but
and he was out for like a day, and then came back and scored almost 50 goals. Like, it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it really is. I still think for that reason alone, he could still be a 40-goal guy, but I don't think, again, I think he is destined to take at least a little bit of a step back. That was what he did last year was just crazy. Like, that is pure determination. I want this record right now. And I want, I don't want anything to happen, some crazy injury that takes me out of hockey forever. No, I want it now as soon as possible. And Dylan Strome, actually, I would argue is, maybe it's a hot take, but I think he is actually the best player on this team. I mean, he has led the team in points the last couple of years. He really is a special player. I think kind of under the radar. He can drive play by himself. I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of his game. He really is a star on his own. He doesn't need anybody else. He can really change games. He can change shifts, and he is a true top line center, in my opinion. So you have that and how good their depth is. I think their depth is really solid, and they have guys like Protas, who, yeah, maybe had an unsustainable year if you look at like the analytics, but I do think he's a legit player. I think his brother might actually be better than him, who they drafted in the 4th round a couple years ago. I don't know how they landed another guy, but they're great at drafting. That's one thing I will say. Even though they haven't committed to a rebuild, their drafting has been incredible. And But getting to the current team, guys like McMichael, again, all these guys kind of overachieved a little bit. You look at the numbers, their like on ice shooting percentage was a lot higher than a sustainable range. They scored on too
Mhm.
many of their shots, and usually that doesn't maintain itself from one year to the next. But it could. I do think that McMichael and Protas and all these guys are sort of what they were last year. I do think they are true top six players, and you have Dubois in there, and maybe Ryan Leonard can make an impact. He's a very high energy type guy who I think is going to have an impact right away. He's going to shoot pucks and he's going to hit people, and that's going to translate to goals, I think, and production. And yeah, I just don't see a true weakness for them. Maybe you could argue it's that their best player isn't really like a Sidney Crosby, like a McDavid type player, but I think they have the depth to really contend. I
Yeah.
don't know, but if they can win a cup, but I think they're good enough to be in that conversation for the number one spot again. I know you have Carolina, and you feel strongly about that, but I think Washington is, I think right up there with them.
Yeah, and like I trust the goaltending for Washington more than I trust Carolina's goaltending, and not even, I've already talked about this, not even the quality of play, but just health. I just trust those two guys to be back there. I listen, man. I picked up Protas in fantasy last year, and like I couldn't even believe he was still available. Like just like so good. The way he plays, I will he get exactly those numbers? Maybe not, but just his style, the way he plays, I still think he's going to be really productive. McMichael it'll be interesting to see. What I really love, dude, is that like Dubois and Chikrin. Now, those two players are coming from completely different stratospheres, right? Dubois just underachieved everywhere he went, and he whined about wherever he was and wanted to leave, and then got what he wanted and then wanted to leave, and then made money and then wanted to leave. Like it was kind of a brat move. Um and Washington gave him a chance, and he was phenomenal last year. And phenomenal, like just based on like he just did his job. You didn't really hear the noise, you didn't hear any drama. He just did his job and did it well. Chikrin, it was not that way, but he just didn't, in my opinion, you could tell that the talent was there, the skill was there. There were moments for like the Kings where Dubois just straight up didn't care. Like you could just tell on the ice, he just just didn't like wasn't having it. Where Chikrin, like he had the talent, had the ability, he just wasn't in a position to succeed. And both those players go to Washington and just thrive. And I'm really curious to see how that is moving forward. Um, oh man, I'm gonna do it again. Bavillier, is that how we do it?
Yeah.
Bavillier.
Hmm.
He is your classic, like Kuzmenko, who like gets there, plays well for a little bit, and then doesn't anymore. So I'm gonna be curious to see how that goes for him, kind of moving forward. Um, but yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I just think they were so good last year that I do think they regress a little bit, making room for Carolina to take that next step above them. But I still think they're in the playoffs. Leading us to our last segment, we're going to wrap up the show. I did not warn you about this, putting you on the spot. Give me your top three in the Metro, and do any of these teams sneak into a wild card spot? And just for fun, tell me if they do make it into a wild card spot. Tell me who you're taking out in the Atlantic.
Well, I'm pretty boring. I'm basically going to have the same thing as last year. I guess I'll have Carolina 1, I'll have Washington 2, and then I'll have New Jersey 3. And I think there's competition between Carolina and Washington. I think it could go either way, but that's my top 3 as of now, basically the same as last year. And I don't think there are any wild card teams. like I said, I think Columbus could make it happen. I think the Rangers could make it happen, just like they almost made it happen last year. But I do agree with you with Ottawa. I think that they're a more structured team, and I think they might actually be better than, and you're going to hate me for it, I think they might be better than Toronto this year. I think it's possible.
Sorry, who's
Um,
this?
Ottawa.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I blacked out for a minute. All right.
I
I don't
think
hate
it's
you, but we're in a fight. We're
yeah,
fighting
for sure. But no, I do like what Ottawa did. I think they got more structured. They took a good team and made it just a little bit better, and they improved the depth. So I think Ottawa for me is in, and Toronto is in, and Tampa. I think they might even win that division. They're too good. Florida, they are they can lose two pieces and still be one of the best team in the league. They could lose two superstars in Barkov and Kachuk really for the whole season, and I still think they're in the playoffs because they are that deep and they are that talented. So that's not changing for me.
And they
And
don't care where they finish either.
of
Like
course,
they don't
yeah,
care wild card, third, and they don't care. They just have to get in and they'll do what they do.
yeah, of course. And then Montreal, I agree with you there. They had a number one. They added a number one defenseman, and they added Demidov as well, who I think is going to be incredible immediately. So they could regress. They were barely a playoff team last year, but I would say that they improved more than the Rangers did and Columbus did. So that's why I would have Montreal in there. So yeah, I think there's maybe some room, but that Atlantic is pretty strong with that top five.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just think whether you have Ottawa in and Toronto out, or Ottawa in and Tampa out, or whatever, it just feels like Florida, Tampa, Toronto, Ottawa. That just kind
Yeah.
of feels like the only thing with Ottawa, and I don't want to talk about the Atlantic too much since we've already gone way over time, but the only thing with Ottawa that concerns me is that they showed us for many years that they just couldn't do it. And they did it last year. And I know they had a new coaching staff, figured some things out along the way. Their star players got older. But just because they made it 1 year doesn't mean that this is who they are now. I still think they have a lot to prove. I actually wrote about this in, I think, June or July. I actually wrote about this for the Hockey Writers, that like just because they made it last year does not guarantee that this team is all of a sudden just like they're here now. They still got something to prove, but I do think they will as well. Justin, thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it. Tell the people, again, putting you on the spot, tell the people, do you got like any pieces coming in the pipeline? Did you put anything out recently? What do you got going on right now for the Hockey Writers?
I don't see. There are a lot of people who will like know what they want to do. If I think of something, I'll just write it, and then that's it. Um, but no, I don't have anything, I guess, exciting I'm working on. I mean, I'm going to be watching prospects now. It's prospect season. I'm going to be tweeting about all that. Maybe some clips that I see, things that I find interesting. There's not a lot of prospect content out there, and that's the thing that fascinates me. I want to inform as best as I can. So, yeah, I guess that's the thing to. If you like prospects, I guess check me out.
Love it, man. I should check you out because I was on the Jets preview and our guy Maddie asked me about prospects, and I was like, this guy, I just another really good writer covers the Jets, Declan.
Hmm.
I just kind of I mean, I'm saying this live on air right now, but I just kind of was like, you know what, man, not my thing. If you want to know, go over to Declan. That's what you got to do, man. Is if you don't
Yeah,
know, you point them in the direction and you sound smart. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, Justin, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. For everybody out there, yesterday we did a week 3 review, week 4 preview for the NFL. Once you get to the bet section, just fast forward like 4 minutes for the Thursday nighter, and you'll get to the rest of the weekend. Again, if you're watching live and you got nothing going on a Friday night, you want to hang out, I will be back with Matt from the Hockey Writers, covers the Canucks, and he'll be helping me cover the Pacific Division at 7:30 tonight. So join me here again tonight. And if you're listening on Spotify, then you already see it in your feed. Everybody, once again, First Round Collectibles, promo code SPORTS10 for 10% off your order, and TotalApexSports.com. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Great rest of your day. There's the music. I was wondering if the computer freezing again. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next. We'll see you in a couple hours. Never mind. Take care.